The Cleveland Browns have finally traded for their quarterback, but man, does he come with a lot of baggage. The Browns got Deshaun Watson. He's going to be suspended for 11 games, but can they do good this year? Jacoby Brissett is going to valiantly fill in for the first 11 games. They have a great run game. They have a really solid offensive line, a good young defense. Can Kevin Stefanski and this offensive coaching staff ensure that this team is good enough by week 13 when Watson comes back that they can remain competitive and potentially be a playoff team? And will Deshaun Watson be ready for the season after essentially missing 2 years of football? What can we expect from the Cleveland Browns this year? Can they even make the playoffs? Real quick, before we talk about how good the Browns will be without Deshaun Watson for most of the season, we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so if you want to see NFL content from us every single week, click the subscribe button and don't forget to like the video.
Now we move on to the Cleveland Browns. They made some interesting moves this offseason, obviously, in regards to who they added, traded for Deshaun Watson, and that whole spiel. Obviously, if you don't know, Watson's out the first 11 games, suspended. Also brought in quarterback Jacoby Brissett, which is very important because of that suspension. Traded for Amari Cooper from John's Cowboys. And then also grabbed wide receiver Jakeem Grant. He's going to be more of a special teams guy, but who knows? Maybe they figure out how to use him in the offense. Then in regards to who they lost, technically lost Odell Beckham last year. Also lost wide receiver Jarvis Landry, center J.C. Treader, tight end Austin Hooper. Obviously, they freed Baker Mayfield as of recently, traded him to Carolina. And then edge rusher Tack McKinley is also who they lost, and defensive lineman Malik Jackson. So, John, very interesting team here with the Browns. What are your expectations for their season?
Well, the Browns are interesting because obviously the Deshaun Watson stuff has really dominated the news for them, and their season is going to be as good as Jacoby Brissett is, really. And I think that they have the system in place to support a backup quarterback because they obviously have two great running backs. They have a fantastic offensive line who should be more healthy this year because last year their tackles were dealing with some injuries. So they should be more healthy this year. And they have Amari Cooper at receiver. Donovan Peoples-Jones could progress. David Njoku's a solid tight end. So they have a lot of pieces in place, a very good defense with young pieces like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward at corner, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at linebacker. They just have a lot of great players, but when you have a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett and you're going up against the Ravens, the Bengals in your division, you're in the AFC and you're going to be battling with the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Raiders and the Titans and the Colts and all these different teams who either A, have a really good defense, or B, have an amazing quarterback, and some of them have both. I just can't imagine the Cleveland Browns are going to make too much noise. I think they have the potential to finish second in the division, but it really depends on how strong of a start they can have with Jacoby Brissett and how much Kevin Stefanski is willing to stick to the run game. I know that Kevin Stefanski is a really solid offensive coach, but there's just some times that I sit there and I question why he's doing what he's doing. There's certain games where he makes a lot of questionable decisions to me. The game that stands out is when the Browns played your Green Bay Packers, I believe on Christmas Day this past season, and Baker Mayfield was hurt by that point in the year. It was public knowledge, very clear. His stats were obviously declining because of the injury. He was not playing near as well as he was. You could even see it just watching. He was not as good as he could have been if he was healthy. And so you would think, okay, you're playing the Packers. They don't have the greatest of run defenses. You have an amazing run attack. Run the ball down their throats. That seems like the very obvious thing to do. And in that game, Nick Chubb averaged 9 yards a carry, and yet they still threw the ball more than they ran the ball, and they allowed Baker Mayfield to throw 4 interceptions in a tight game. The Packers barely won that game. This was not like it was some massive lead, and so they had to be forced into throwing the ball. This was a very close contest, and that, to me, you can blame Baker Mayfield for the interceptions, and he absolutely deserves criticism for that. But once again, he was injured by that point. Everyone knew that, and whether you applaud him for playing or not, the coaching staff is the one who made the decision first off to play him. And they're also the ones who made the decision to throw the ball, because I can't imagine that Baker Mayfield at any point in his NFL career has been given the green light to audible out of any play that he wants. And also, I can't imagine that Baker Mayfield would have the gall to audible out of run plays that consistently when Nick Chubb is averaging 9 yards a carry. So that game, I know it's just one game, but that's just an example of the question marks I have for Kevin Stefanski and some of his coaching decisions. I'm not saying he should be fired by any means, but I do think he has avoided criticism because of all the attention that has been sent Baker Mayfield's way. And once again, I've never been that big of a believer in Baker Mayfield, so I'm not saying that Stefanski is all to blame and Baker is, some saint, but I do think Stefanski, you need to keep an eye on him this year, especially don't give him the excuse this year of, oh, well, it's Jacoby Brissett, because he's been dealing with those sort of quarterbacks of that level since he's come to Cleveland, and we've seen them make the playoffs. And last year, although they had injuries as well, I think that they still had the talent to make noise, and they weren't even able to really compete for even second place in this division. So I think the Browns, they could be an all right team, but once again, they're going to go as far as Jacoby Brissett can take them, because Deshaun Watson's not going to be back till week 13. Also, kind of weird that they wanted his first game back. The NFL wanted his first game back to be against the Houston Texans in Houston. That feels a little weird. Maybe it's because they know that it's going to get a lot of attention and a lot of people are going to watch it, even though it's not really that good of a game. But I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I feel about the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I want to say that I remember when that came out. It does seem very fishy of the NFL. Like, I don't know. No one in the room when they all agreed to this, they're like, wait a minute, this is against the Texans. Like, are we sure we want to do this with all eyes? I don't know, especially with everything that happened.
It's also not like a normal number. Like if it was, he got suspended for 10 games. Okay, 12 games. Yeah, because everybody does like the even number suspensions. It's 11 games, which just feels oddly, pun not intended, specific for, I don't know. I think it was intentional, but it is what it is.
Yeah, so we'll see. So yeah, in regards to the Browns, I think their defense will obviously be pretty good. Obviously, saw Myles Garrett, my boy JOK started really coming on towards the end of last season, and they still have Denzel Ward and such. Obviously, I would like to see them be a little more creative on defense. They like to run that Seattle, base cover 3, just kind of be simplistic. Here's what we do, running these 4 or 5 coverages. Hopefully they mix it up a little bit more. They have the talent to do so. On offense, my main concern, obviously, I think Jacoby Brissett's a solid backup. But I'm not outside of Amari Cooper. And also I saw a stat, Amari Cooper, not great in the outdoors, apparently, which you're going to be in Cleveland. I don't know. I remember here, one of my many podcasts, I listen to them while I'm at work. So it's like kind of like in my background per se. So that may be a stat, but nonetheless, even so, like, besides Amari Cooper, like no one really scaring you. I know Dobbins People-Jones had his moments, but I think he's more of like a 2/3, probably more like a number 3 guy. And yeah, like you mentioned, I do have concerns about Stefanski's patience with the run game, tying plays together via play action. I don't, like I said, it's hard to tell, where to assess some of the blame. Is it Stefanski? Is it Baker? So I like stuff like that. I'm more putting towards Stefanski. So we'll see what happens there. Still think the running backs are really damn good, and we'll see. In regards to tight end, I think tight end will be okay. They brought back David Njoku. In regards to if they'll make the playoffs, I don't want to ruin my stuff, but I think they're just going to miss out. I think they'll definitely be on the fringe. This is a team that's too talented not to be on the fringe, even with Jacoby Brissett leading the charge. And hopefully for Browns, in terms of, rooting for Browns, which is tough to do for me right now saying that, but maybe they can just stay afloat. And then if Watson can get back, and I think it's important to note too, Watson hasn't played football in almost 2 years. So it may take him a little bit to get back to what he's doing. And this is still a brand new system for him too. So there may be an adjustment period regardless. And also, to be honest, and like, I'm not trying to dive into this, but all the stuff off the field with him and such, like that can weigh on a team over time. And I'm just not sure that Cleveland's going to be 100% mentally, and then also they're still not congealed to get. It's still relatively, throwing in a new quarterback, dealing with all this. You're going to be dealing with all this criticism all year. I just feel like this year's going to be a tough year for them, and I think the weight will be lifted off them a year removed from everything. They'll be right in that fringe, but I don't have them making the playoffs. I don't think so. Cleveland Browns 8-9, upgraded the quarterback position, made some moves at wide receiver. So we'll see if that will get them over the hump and if they can finally get back to the playoffs like they did with Baker. Because that is the benchmark.